Okay, this is my Galax RTX 4080, ready for waterblock. For those of you that know, getting a waterblock for a Galax 4080 is nearly impossible, and to the best of my knowledge there is only one. This one is from Bykski, bought on AliExpress. I want to talk about these things. Galax is not a particularly well-known brand, certainly in the West. I live on an island in the Gulf of Thailand. In Southeast Asia, Galax is a pretty well-respected brand. I mean, sure, it's no Asus, it's no Founders Edition, but all around regarded to be a pretty solid card. I will say that this center fan here, from the box, has a PWM fault, and this center fan spins full speed all the time. Really, that should be an RMA issue, but when you live on an island in Thailand, RMAs are a nightmare, and I plan on removing this cooler anyway. So in the meantime, it's been getting by just fine on the other two fans. Bykski. Let's talk about water blocks. Bykski, Barrow, Bits Power, probably others. All of these Chinese water block brands are fine. They are good. Don't be fooled into thinking that you need to buy EK or Heat Killer or whoever else is going to make a water block for your GPU or CPU. Copper's copper. If the contacting faces are flat, the fins are good, it doesn't leak. Get the one that you can afford. You don't need to spend more than your damn graphics card on a water block. This 3080 Ti here has been running no problems at all since pre-COVID. This is a Barrow water block that I fitted on here. No staining, no loss of nickel. Performance has been fantastic. This card has never been higher than 60 degrees, despite 40 plus degree ambient temperatures Celsius. Do yourself a favor, go on AliExpress, buy the cheap stuff, spend your budget on better hardware. Now, on that, what you don't get when you buy Bykski or Barrow or Bits Power is any instructions at all. I had this issue when I put this one on my 3080 Ti. It was not fun. That's why I'm making this video. I'm sure that someone out there has a Galax 4080, wants to put a water block on it. No instructions, no videos on YouTube, no tutorials, doesn't know what to do. Hey, I don't know what to do, but I'm going to figure it out so that someone who needs this information will have it when they need it. I'm no YouTuber, I'm no content producer, but I can see that this information will be valuable for that one person that maybe has one of these, maybe has one of these, but has no idea how to fit it. Let's go. I don't know if these two screws need to come out. We're about to find out. Something I like quite a lot about the 40 series cards, certainly in comparison with the 30 series cards, is no memory chips. No memory chips on the back of the board. Certainly those people who had 3080s, 3080 Ti's, 3090s would be well and truly familiar with the amount of backplate heat those GPUs produced. It was certainly an amount of heat that I was not comfortable with, hence the Waterblock with the active backplate. Many people would say it made no difference, but certainly as far as keeping excess heat out of your case, the active backplate on the 30 series, for my personal situation, was well worth it. On your 40 series cards, no need, no memory chips on the back, although I have noticed that the passive backplate on this card, I've done some testing on it before I started pulling it apart. I have noticed that this gets quite hot as well. Why? I don't know. But it's enough of an issue that Galax saw fit to include this. It's this naff little fan which clips onto the passive backplate and makes it, you know, I guess that's an active backplate now, right? I don't know. Probably a gimmick. Nonetheless, there is some backplate heat with the 40 series cards, certainly this one, but it's nothing compared to what my 3080 Ti produced. So I think at this point I should be able to pull this PCB straight up, but I don't know. I've never done this on this card. We're just going through this together. Okay, the mounting plate secures the PCB, it appears, to this bracket in here. So we're probably going to have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 screws, remove the mounting plate, and then we'll see where we're at. Done. Always be careful when you do this, regardless of which card you're stripping. Cooler will always have some connection to the fans. On some cards you may expect to see a ribbon cable. On these we have this sort of Molex style connector, which makes things a little bit easier. there we have it. Alright, I'm going to stop the camera in a moment and go and get a few things to clean the thermal grease off of this chip, because I did not prepare those before I started recording, so I'll be right back. Okay, that'll do. It's not perfectly clean, but it's good enough. I much prefer to spend less time rubbing away on my GPU with a cloth and risking static damage and things like that. I'd much rather spend less time doing that and have a GPU face that's not perfectly clean. We're going to cover it in thermal paste anyway, it's fine. So this card's ready to have the block put on. Now the Bykski block comes with a whole bunch of screws. I don't know what any of them do. Much like my Barrow block on my 3080 Ti. They just gave you the water block and a bag of screws and sent you off on your merry way. But we'll figure it out together. Now, before we do anything too stupid, let's get the screws that we took out, put them somewhere else, and not mix them up with the screws for the new block. So like I said before, your Chinese blocks, your Barrows, your Bykskis, your Bits Powers, they're pretty good. This particular one, sure, I mean, we could criticize that there is maybe some slightly discernible texture in the mating faces, but for what you're paying compared to EK or Heat Killer or any of the others, who cares? Honestly, who cares? This is going to be full of thermal paste. Furthermore, this is the only block. This is the one. This is the only block that I can find that will fit this card. If I'm wrong, let me know. So let's have a look. It would appear to me that we have a problem. This area of the block, I hope you can see that on the camera, has been machined out to provide some clearance for a capacitor, which, as far as I could tell, should go in just like that. That being the case, we might have a problem. I'm going to stop the video. I'll be right back. Alright, we might have some issues. Let's just be real about something here. Come on, focus, focus, focus. RTX 4080 SG Galax. This is the item that I've ordered from AliExpress. Galax RTX 4080 SG. There's a model number on there, GY4080XY-X, which is stamped onto the block. GY4080XY-X. This is the block they sell to fit this card. Let me show you a few things. Our 4 holes around our chip obviously need to line up with these 4 here. A little something like that. The first thing I notice, I cannot get this block to sit down because of the aforementioned capacitor issue down in here. Furthermore, the relief in the acrylic to accommodate the power cable does not line up with the power connector. Worse than all of that, assuming those issues did not exist, I don't know if we can see through there, there is absolutely no way known that this block will ever make contact with the chip. There's a problem here. There's a problem here, Bykski. What's going on? Okay, I've done some investigating off camera. It doesn't look good. It does not look good. Particularly as I started this video out singing the praises of Bykski and Barrow and Bits Power and whatever. There's a number of issues here. The issues I pointed out just before, of course, those being lack of clearance between this capacitor and the block, the fact that the power connector does not line up with the recess in the acrylic it's supposed to fit into. Further, this part of the block here stops the card from sitting where it needs to because of the power connector. Something's gone seriously wrong with the design of this card, and there's no way that Bykski do not know about this, but they're shipping the card anyway. I also doubt very much that they're going to do anything about it with the 5000 series cards being around the corner, but we'll see. I'm going to talk to them about this. Further issues. There are a number of standoffs mounted on this card, which of course the card should screw to. It is in fact possible to just sneak the card down where it needs to go. If of course we remove this standoff, which is supposed to be there to accommodate a screw, but nonetheless. If by some miracle I'm actually able to get the card down onto the screws, I don't know if you can see. I can barely see. But these standoffs are too long. These standoffs are too long, and they prevent the card from being able to come into the block enough for the water block to make contact with the GPU. Now while I had the camera off, I do a little bit of testing. I removed all these standoffs. leaving me with only the small standoffs to actually secure the card to the block using factory tensioner. Something along those lines. So I don't know. I don't know what to do here. I can probably get this block mounted up somehow. But the holes don't even line up right. I can sneak the card down, but I need another, quarter of a millimeter, half a millimeter to actually get this card mounted to the block. At this stage, the only way of doing that I can see is to remove some material from the copper here to accommodate this black power connector, so that the whole card can come over just slightly and then mount down onto the block. Unfortunately, that means the whole weight of this water block, and if you've ever installed one of these things, you know they're a kilo plus, is then being supported only on these 4 screws, which doesn't sit real good with me. I did do some testing off camera before. You can see there's a greasy smear on the GPU here. If I do this will work if I can sort out this alignment issue. I mean, hey, I've already voided the warranty on the Galax card. They're not going to take this back, so I need to make this work. This is the only block available that will fit this card. The only way out is through. I think my next step is to take a file or something and just remove a millimeter or so of material from the side of the block here. Not something I'm very impressed about having to do, particularly as someone who's always been a fan of these types of water blocks. Yeah, disappointing, but yeah, let's get to it. Does this happen to everybody? Alright, let's go. Okay, so I need to remove that little bit of metal, a little bit of copper from the water block. While I'm doing it, I don't really want to scratch up all the acrylic. While the damn thing doesn't fit properly, I'd still like to keep it looking pretty nice. I can probably make this work. So I'm going to take the copper water block off of the acrylic so that I can do the metal work on it without scratching it all up. So here we are, brand new card, brand new water block, and we're doing metal work right out of the gate. Not very impressed. Bykski. Not impressed. I might add while I'm doing this, the standoffs, which I've determined are too long, are kind of required, not only so that the weight of the water block is supported in more places and more evenly distributed across the card, but the passive black backplate, the black aluminium backplate that Bykski includes, is designed such that it screws down onto those standoffs. So yeah, that's another little issue that we're going to have to deal with. Not quite as much of a severe issue as block doesn't fit card at all, but we're far from out of the woods. I'm fairly confident I can get this to fit one way or another, only then to be presented with the issue of how do I fit the backplate, and does the backplate actually make contact with the components that it needs to. Something I'm yet to investigate. In fact, let's have a look right now. I do notice that the factory backplate from the Galax 4080 does have these 3 little thermal pads on it. So obviously Galax thinks that there's something there that needs to be cooled. That something is yeah, I don't know. So the card sits like that. What are we doing, Galax? What are we calling? Whatever that is, whatever that is, whatever that is. I'm not one of these guys that can look at the SMD components on a graphics card and tell you what they all are. But yeah, whatever they are, Galax has seen fit to cool them. Has Bykski? I don't know. They do include thermal pads. Presumably this is for the memory chips. You know, if you've done this before, you know anything about this, you know that the memory chips should always have thermal pads on them to make contact with the sections of the water block that are designed to cool them. 1, 2, 3 for our 8 2 chips. Yeah, I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. So for now, we have the acrylic section of our water block removed, and as I would have predicted, this annoying O-ring thing has jumped out of his groove, so we get to battle with that when we put it back together as well, because Bykski's block didn't fit in the first place. Yeah, I wasn't really paying attention when that came out. I guess that goes there somewhere. We'll work that out. I'm going to go and do some metal work or go and find some tools. I'm not really sure what the next step is. It's dark outside, so either I'll take this out to the workshop and bring it back with some metal removed here, or I'll go and find a tool and I'll do it on the camera. Preference would be to do it on the camera, but there is a good chance that I'm just going to get an angle grinder and grind that back, and I don't want to do that in here. Yeah, bear with me. Alright, it fits. I ended up just using an angle grinder to remove a little bit of material here off this part of the block. Kind of something I'm not very happy about, because it did mean cutting into this threaded standoff here. Oddly enough though, get that on there. Oddly enough, that standoff doesn't do anything anyway. It does nothing. So yeah, I probably could have removed a little bit more material just to buy myself just a slightly more space in here, but I don't need it. It's a brand new block. I shouldn't be removing material at all. This thing should fit right up. But it's done. The four mounting holes now line up. And if I get that straight on there, we do have good contact with the GPU die, so we can move on. We can move on with the mounting of the block itself. Now normally at this stage, we'd be getting into thermal paste up the GPU chip, put your block on, put it all together, away you go, start playing your games, do whatever you do. But I know I'm going to have some issues here. I know that these standoffs here are too long. I know that I may have some problems just with the weight of this block being supported only by the 4 screws that pull it down against the GPU, and I know that I might have an issue with the back plate. So I'm going to do a bit of a dry install first, I think, just to preserve my sanity. So yeah, let's get on with that now. Let's just do a dry install of just the block. Get that seated where it needs to go. we'll put the acrylic on, and then we'll start having a look at those standoffs and the back plate, and we'll see what we can do about making these things fit together. This video is very much taken an unexpected turn. I didn't think it was going to be like this. I thought this was going to be a pretty straightforward video to help out, you know, maybe someone that hasn't installed a water block before, just wants maybe a little bit of a confidence boost before they go on and attempt this job themselves. I can say already, if you've never installed a water block before, if you're not comfortable with taking your brand new and fairly expensive lump of copper and having at it with an angle grinder to make it fit, if you're not comfortable deciding for yourself how long things like this should be to put the right amount of pressure on your memory chips, on your GPU, on your VRMs, all that kind of thing, if you're not experienced with this, you're a bit green, you don't know what you're doing. I think the combination of this water block from Bykski and specifically the Galax 4080, it's probably not for you. Yeah, I mean, the Galax is very well priced against, you know, your Asus and your MSI and your Founders Edition variants, which is of course why I have it. And this is the only water block for it. I think if you pay a little bit more for a card, you'll have more options in water blocks. I do still maintain that you don't need to be spending a fortune on water blocks, on the big name blocks, particularly with the news coming out of failing nickel plating and all that kind of thing on some of the bigger brands. I'm not happy with Bykski. Yeah, I'm gonna share this video with them. I'm gonna talk about that. Not that I think it's gonna make any difference, but you know, your Barrow, your Bits Power. I'm sure that there's other brands coming out of, you know, China or whatever. Have a look at those blocks. Don't buy this block. Don't buy this card if you want to water cool it. Do buy this card if you want a good price, well-performing 4080. These are a very good card. Despite the fact that, as I said, mine came with the issue with the PWM that drives this fan. By the by, yeah, I don't think this is a beginner's video anymore. This is a video for someone that knows what they're doing and knows what's actually going to be involved if they go down this path. But yeah, let's start doing our dry fit. Let's get this thing together and see where we're going to be with this. Interesting stuff. Oops. Now we're not going to go too crazy on these, just enough to stop things moving around. This is just a dry fit after all. But there it is. The block fits the card now. Reasonably happy with the contact between the GPU and the part of the block behind the cooling fins. But I do note that when I look down through here, I'm not sure how much you can see. We can try to get in there. The air gap between the memory chips and the part of the water block that should provide the cooling for those chips is larger than I've seen before. Too large? No, but larger than I've seen before. Bykski did include, a selection of thermal pads in. I think there's 2 thicknesses here. I haven't really looked at it yet, and I'm quite sure that we can bridge that. But I really would have liked to have seen the machine blocks on the back of the water block be slightly taller, so we're less reliant on the thickness of the thermal pads than we are going to be. But here we are. We will persevere. Not even going to bother putting in the O-ring or the jet plate or any of this other stuff yet. Just dry fitting. I just want to see what we've got here, see what we're dealing with, and see if I can actually get this card fully assembled with the passive back plate and all that kind of thing. I probably won't even put all these screws in just yet. 4 will do. Another issue that I'm expecting that I'm going to be running into fairly soon is related to the fact that this little relief in the acrylic is in entirely the wrong spot, Bykski, which in and of itself is not an inherent issue, but the power connector that will be going in here, the funky 1:3 8-pin power adapter, does have a little plastic clip, which I don't know if we can see that on the camera. There's a little tab on the power connector that the cable needs to get over and clip on. Now, in order to bring the PCB of the Galax 4080 up onto the water block where it needs to sit, this plastic tab is in fact making contact with the acrylic. It may be the case that I'm going to have to make a little relief in the back of the acrylic here to accommodate that, which of course is going to look terrible on the front side, particularly when we have our RGB LED strip lighting up. It's going to stick out. But I'm out of options at the moment, so I need to keep moving forward. So yeah, dry fit, water block is on, the acrylic's on. Let's start having a look at our back plate. We already know. Oh look, there's nothing for me to fit that onto. Yeah, this is, this is not good. But let's have a look. I did call these standoffs out as being too long. When I look now, it doesn't seem to be the case. So perhaps something else before was fouling and preventing the card from coming all the way up. It does look like that one's going to fit on there okay. Oh sorry, they go around this way, but if that's going to go on there okay. This one is going to, yeah, they're going to be okay. There is one that I'm curious about that actually doesn't screw into the acrylic like this. It's this little short one here. I pulled this out of the copper of the block. So we'll have another quick little look at that. I'll screw that back into the copper block and then redo my dry fit of the card onto the back of the cooler and see if we have clearance. If we do, maybe we've gotten away with it. Maybe I'm being a little bit too harsh on Bykski. I hope so. Now I don't even know where it goes. I believe it was here. I believe it came from here. Yeah, completely pointless. Bykski, guys, what's that supposed to do? What's this for? All this thing does is make your product not fit the card. Figure it out, guys. Come on. All right, let's move forward. Things are looking good. Things are looking up. Start getting some of these standoffs happening here. Roast me. I deserve it. Alright, that's on, not too tight. Okay, a little tighter. This screw here is preventing the back plate from coming all the way down. I don't really like to tension and retension these things any more than I have to. I mean, we're not going to damage anything, we know that, but it's just, I feel like, you know, much like working on a car, if you're going to torque something down, torque it down one time. If you're not going to torque it down, then don't torque it down. But today we have to. It's gonna work. I did note in the screws that Bykski include, like Barrow, like Bits Power, like all of them, they've included these plastic washers. These plastic washers are intended to go between the standoffs and the PCB on either side, just to prevent any, you know, undesirable shorting or whatever. And that's going to close up these small gaps here. When I put the back plate on the card, like so, the back plate is actually hitting the top of the screws that we used tension to block onto the chip, which is preventing. Oh, my cable's fallen down. Sorry about that, guys. It's preventing these standoffs from coming together on the card by, you know, a fairly significant amount. See, I'm actually rocking backwards and forwards. I feel like with a combination of these little plastic washers on either side of the PCB, as well as these spring-loaded screws that I've noted that the Bykski and Barrow products both ship with, I'm quite sure, the identical screw. I think I'm going to get this on. I don't think we're going to have too many problems. So, you know, I'm still very critical of Bykski for this particular block. This is the first time I've had an issue with their products. This is unacceptable. This is absolutely unacceptable. No user should be having to spend, you know, a couple $100 or whatever these cost for one of these water blocks, then have to completely strip it down and use an angle grinder to make it fit their graphics card. It's absolutely absurd. Look, Bykski, I still love your products. I still use your radiators, your DD5 pumps. Your fittings are fantastic. I've never had a problem with one of your water blocks before. How did this happen? How did this get out of the factory? How can I be buying this product from you to fit this card when you can't even get the relief right for the power connector? What's going on here? I'm absolutely mind blown. But it's going to work once the card's in the machine, as long as I can address this issue with the clearance for the power connector. it's gonna be all right. Like, it's gonna be fine. Let's not pretend like this is the end of the world. But you know, if this is your first time water cooling a graphics card and you haven't seen issues like this before, you haven't found yourself in a position where you need an angle grinder to fit your water block, you know, your customer experience is going to be pretty bad with the combination of this card and this water block. I just can't recommend it. I cannot. In my case, I bought this card. It's clearly not going back now. I bought this block. I'm not going to send it back to China. You know, for me personally, I live on a little island in the Gulf of Thailand, so RMAs and sending things back is just a total nightmare for me. So I'm going to push on. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to tell you not to buy a Galax 4080. They're great. I'm not going to tell you not to do this, but I will tell you that if you are going to buy this combination of hardware, you're in for a little bit of a ride. So yeah, I'm going to turn the camera off one more time and go and take care of a few things, and then we're going to come back and we'll put this card back for real. We'll put the thermal paste on there. We'll sort out the thermal pads for the memory chips. We'll put it all together, and we can get back to playing some games. Okay, I'm back. Not quite ready to fit things or finish fitting things together yet. This is the first time I've made a video like this. I don't really intend to make a lot of videos like this. This is likely to be a bit of a one-off. I don't intend to edit this very much either, so you're going to get a lot of me coming back and forth. I would like anyone watching this to see what the experience is like for me. I don't want to pretend like none of this stuff is happening. I got the power cable just to have a look. If I fit this block like I suspected, we are going to have a problem. We're going to have a problem with the clip for the power connector getting up and over the lug that it's supposed to engage on. If you know anything about the number of issues that people have had with cables on 40 series cards melting or catching fire or failing in one way or another because of poor connections, you know damn well why I'm not going to remove this. I could just cut that off and slide it in. It would probably work fine, but we are not going to do that. We're going to have to remove some material, remove some acrylic from the back here, so that this clip can get in there and have some room. The other thing that I want to mention, I've had to remove some copper here to fit around this power connector, and I noticed that one of the wires on the back of the connector is very close to the copper there, and I'm super uncomfortable with that. So before I fully assemble this thing, I'm going to pull it apart again, and I'm going to remove a little bit more copper. I'm going to give some more space around this power connector, so there's no risk of connecting the power connector to the side of this copper block, because yeah, I don't know what's going to happen then, but only bad things. So while I've got the angle grinder out, removing that copper, I'm going to grind in a little bit of space on the back of this bit of acrylic here, just to make some room for the clip on the power connector. It ain't going to be pretty. In fact, it's going to be damn ugly. Bykski, come on, this isn't good enough. I'll turn the camera off again. I'll be back when I've done those jobs, and then hopefully we can put this thing together. Alright, we've done what we need to do. As expected, it's not pretty. Fortunately, I'm not one of these guys who needs their PC to look like, I don't know, those ones you see on Reddit and YouTube and whatnot. As long as it works, I'm happy. I've ground out a little bit more clearance on the copper here, so I'm very confident that I'm not going to have any problems with shorting against this connector here. One thing that I will mention if you ever do this, and I'll actually take this back off just to emphasize this point, because this is quite important. The area of the water block where you need to remove some copper, it goes through some kind of female threaded standoff not like the standoffs that we use on the back plate. It's actually machined into the block itself. I'm not really sure what its purpose is. It doesn't seem to do anything on this particular card. It could be a threaded hole that fits one of the other cards that Bykski advertised that this block will fit. Whoop. So as I was grinding the material away to make room for that power connector, bear with me here. What you need to do is actually grind through this little this little female threaded area here. And what I found happened was the material that was being removed is actually building up in this female threaded area. Please get that all out of there, because at some point it's going to fall out of here, and when it falls out of here, it's going to wind up on your graphics card. And where it's going to wind up is going to be right in here somewhere near the power delivery section of your board. I'm not an electronics engineer, but I'm guessing that a few bits of raw copper kicking around here doing their thing is probably not what you want on your brand new 4080. So if you are going to do this, if you're going to do it how I've done it, if you're going to modify your block and take that material away, spend a little bit of extra time. Get those chips and those swarf and little bits of copper out of there, or you are probably going to have a problem. I've also gone ahead and I've ground in the clearance that we need for the power connector. As predicted, it looks terrible. I don't care, but it fits. So what we're going to do, we're going to reassemble the block completely. We're just going to build the water block back to the way that it came, before I modified it as best I can. And then we're going to have a look at fitting it. If I can remember how this all went together. Was it like that? It looks like that, right? Maybe we go this way. Do we go this way? No, it goes this way. Okay, cool. We'll put in our O-ring. If you've got some, not a bad idea to put a little bit of Vaseline on these O-rings when you assemble these things. It just helps to hold it in, helps to prevent any leaks in the future. You also want to be careful not to stretch this too much as you're pulling it in. Often you'll end up in a situation where if you've stretched this around, you'll get this bit that won't go in. So this is a brand new block, so that there's not a lot of memory in this rubber O-ring. If you've got one that's a little bit older, you'll often find that the ring, if you just sort of drop it, it will sit in kind of the right shape, and that will make it easier to get around these corners, but that's not going to help me in this instance. Yeah, so we're just going to have to get that in. I don't really like doing this, it's a bit of a pain in the butt, but here we are. This sucks. I'll be back after I've got this in and I've got this on. You don't need to see this. Okay, that was not fun. Let's do this. Now I'm going to use a product I've not actually used before. It's the Thermal Grizzly Cryonaut Extreme. I think it is anyway. When you live in Southeast Asia and you buy things online, you know, maybe it's the real thing, maybe it's not. They seem to have gone to a lot of effort here to demonstrate that it is the real thing and not a counterfeit. There's some sort of a little verifiable product code here. I mean, what difference does that make? I'm about to use the paste anyway. It's either real or it's not, but I'm sure it's going to work. It's thermal paste. This stuff has a bit of a reputation for not being particularly easy to use, which is not one of the reasons I've never bought it. I've just always had enough supply of other kinds of paste. But I believe that you just take one of these applicators and you screw it into the end of the syringe here, something like this. And with a little bit of a squeeze here, we should start seeing it like this. I'm not going to get into a discussion about how much paste to put on or where to put the paste. It doesn't matter how you do it. I'm going to go for a thin hole coverage. When I put the block on, the paste is going to squeeze out. It's non-conductive, it's not a problem. Just make sure you get it on there. Some people like to put the pea-sized blob on there. It doesn't matter, just get the paste on. Looks good to me. Yeah, this paste is quite thick and tends to kind of drag around a little bit, a bit like peanut butter, I suppose. That's one, quite a common criticism of this paste. I've not used it before. This is my first time. The paste is on the die. It's going to work. Don't stress about it. Also off camera, I did take the time to cut up the included thermal pads to fit the part of the water block that cools the memory chips. Good idea when you put these on, don't put too much pressure on there, just enough. Because you really want the squeezing effect when you bring the block onto the card. You want that to be the thing that compresses these pads. You don't want to go compressing them yourself too much when you apply them. Don't forget to take the plastic off both sides. Good enough. So, full disclosure, I actually finished this video at this point. I completed the assembly of the card, put it all together, put it in the PC, refilled my not particularly user-friendly water loop, booted up, posted, no problems, the card works, the job is a success. Unfortunately, as soon as I fired up the PC, I remembered something that I had forgotten, which is extremely important, which was putting the thermal pads on the VRMs and the other power delivery associated hardware. I didn't want this to be a video with a lot of editing or that kind of thing, but yeah, I'm going to put this little chunk in and then we'll pick up where we left off before. I also forgot to show the part where I reinstalled this mounting plate for the rear of the card. So yeah, we're going to take a little bit of a step back here. As you can see, I've got the back plate on. It still has some coolant in there. I'm going to pull it apart. We're going to strip it back to where we were at the point where I put the thermal paste on the die and put the thermal pads on the memory chips and strip everything back. And I'm going to show you how we put the thermal pads onto the power delivery parts of the board. And yeah, then we're going to start over. Let's go. This will be a good opportunity for us to have a look at our thermal grizzly paste, see how it performed when we torqued the water block onto the 4080. Yeah, let's see how we did. Do we have a big awful mess of squeezed out paste here? Is it too thick? Is it too thin? We're about to find out. I'm firmly in the camp of it doesn't really matter. Let's see. You tell me. Further to what I was saying earlier about trying to avoid excess compression of the thermal pads when you apply them, this is exactly what I'm talking about here. You can see the ridges in the thermal pad between the chips, which tells me that we've got very good contact on the actual surfaces of the chips themselves. Had we have pushed this down and smeared this onto the block, we could never be sure of that. The only way we could ever be sure of that is by removing the block, and by which time it doesn't matter because we've removed the block. So yeah, do heed that advice. Heed that advice. Don't press your thermal pads down too far. Just enough to make them stick is all you need. Is ideal. I'm going to cheat a little bit here because of the mistake that I made. I do have a limited supply of the thermal pad material, so I'm going to gently kick this off if I can. And I'm going to flip it over. Let's call this one of those do as I say and not as I do things. Embarrassing as my mistake is, I'm not going to pretend like it didn't happen. we can learn from the mistake and move on. Now, on all this, a water block fitted card with no thermal paste and no contact with the VRMs is going to boot. It's going to post. It's going to run your games. Probably most of you out there will be running your water loops based on water temperature or load or CPU core temp or GPU core temp, depending on your setup. Maybe in the initial stages of installing a card, maybe we'll be keeping an eye on our VRM and power delivery temperatures. For the most part, we're not really watching. The card's going to appear to work fine. The power delivery on cards these days is getting insane. This particular card has a two-phase power supply system and I think 19 phases of VRM power delivery. And despite the increasing complexity of power delivery in graphics cards, the industry just, still uses crap hardware. The components in these power delivery systems are not complex. They're not, they're not magic, not some crazy design. They're just the cheapest VRM chips they can get, and they get bloody hot. And we won't know. We won't know because we're keeping an eye on our core temps or our memory temps or our hotspot temps. So the card would work. It would work fine. Had I not have picked up on this, I probably wouldn't have noticed. I could be gaining one day, and one day my card would fail because one of the VRM chips has overheated and died. Cooling your power delivery is very important. Arguably more important than cooling your memory chips because they will get by. Don't do what I did. Don't forget that you do need to cool the power delivery section of your board. Something interesting on that I'll show you. I'll just I'll go and get the factory cooler. The factory cooler on the Galax 4080 has been designed such that it will cool more, I believe, we'll have a look, more componentry than the Waterblock will. Obviously the Galax card has this raised section here with a thermal pad on it for cooling the VRM chips that live down in here and in here. And they've also seen fit to cool with this section here of thermal pad. The top of these guys here. I'm not going to pretend to know what all this stuff does. I don't even know what this component is, but I do know that on previous cards that I've water cooled, most blocks have cooled both these and the chips. Perhaps the top of these will make contact with this face along here. I don't know. We'll find out as we reassemble it. But obviously, Bykski and Galax have differing ideas on what needs to be cooled and how. Yeah, so we're going to push on. Do note also that there are two more of these on the card here, and both Galax here and here. Oh, there's three. Both Galax and Bykski seem to be firmly of the opinion that those need to be cooled as well. So we'll cut a little bit of thermal pad to fit on those, and we'll get on with it. Actually, let's have a look. Let's have a look. What I want to see here is, obviously I know that this raised portion of the water block is designed to make contact with these chips down in here. But I want to see if this recessed part here, I want to see how much air gap there is between the top of these components here and the block. If it looks like they're, you know, less than a thermal pad away, then we'll put some thermal pad down in here. Right, we're looking at about 2.5, 3 mil. And that's a fairly sizable gap for a thermal pad. But we'll see what I have left over. It looks to me like I can probably get away with one of these cut in half for here. And I have a small amount left over from the piece that I cut for the memory chips, which I can get these raised portions out of. And that will leave me with 2 whole pieces, which we'll lay down in there. So yeah, we're going to do it. We're going to cool those parts. It's, you know, Bykski's absolute lack of documentation and lack of anything clear in the machining on the back of the block here doesn't make it clear to the customer or to the user that that needs to be done. The smart play, of course, would be to look at the factory cooler and see how they did it before you start doing any of this stuff, but I never said that I was a smart play. Yeah, let's have at it. I might actually just pause the camera for a sec. You know, you don't need to watch me cutting the thermal pads and messing around with this. Okay, thermal pads are on. You know, we've put pads on those little sections that we spoke about and all the VRM hardware. Something I will mention is Bykski had a little standoff in here, which made the card and the Waterblock incompatible. That needs to come out. This needs to come out. I don't know why it's there. Yeah, you cannot do this job with that standoff in that hole there. I've also taken the time to reapply some pink stuff to the core. And yeah, so what we'll do now is I'm going to go ahead and reassemble this and reinstall it in the PC. For you watching, I'm going to edit the video back to what I had already finished before, and the rest of the process, yeah, it is a success. And keep on watching after this cut and we'll pick up where we left off. Yeah, enjoy. This one. These 2 and this one. And we're good. Okay, now we need to put washers on the top as well. Don't forget those. Those are just as important as the ones on the other side. Okay, and our last step, you may remember I spoke about the little sections of thermal pad that were on the factory backplate, 1, 2, 3, and they're involved with cooling whatever these 3 chips are here. They're obviously power related. I don't know what they do. And I'm not going to stress too much about this. I'm just basically going to get just some bits, stick them on there. One of the great things about thermal packs is they will just squish down very, very thin. So I'm just gonna stick it on there. Don't stress about this stuff. Don't overthink it. Once again, remember there's plastic both sides. The number of times I've seen people forget that there's plastic on both sides would blow your mind. Okay, here we go, back plate. Okay. These screws are not for that. I think these ones are. I'm a little unhappy about that. I was really hoping that the spring-loaded screws would be for this, because as I said, I feel like it's not going to sit entirely flat. And of course my little plastic washers have all moved around, because that's what they do. So this is pretty much going to wrap up this video, guys. This is I don't know. This is going to work fine. It's going to look okay, I suppose. But I don't know. As a consumer, as a customer, as someone who's paid, you know, a significant amount of money for this card and for this water block, the experience sucks. You shouldn't have to do this. I shouldn't have to take this hardware and have at it with an angle grinder to make it fit, and you know, worry about things like the side of the power connector fouling on the copper block because of what can only be called poor design. Yeah, it's. I mean, look, I still love Bykski, I still love Barrel and Bits Power. The block's on. It's gonna work, but pretty hard to recommend the Bykski block for the Galax 4080. I mean, I don't have a choice. You do. And if you're in a situation I'm in where you bought this block, or you bought this card and you need a water block, this is about your only choice. And if you bought the card, you bought the block. Hopefully this video is going to give you a bit of an idea of what you're in for, because you know, this is not really a typical experience with fitting a block to a GPU. You know, it's going to be fine. Everything's going to be fine. But yeah, you tell me, should it be like this? Is paying, you know, near double what this water block costs for, you know, an Alpha Cool or an E-Killer or an EK or any other brand? Is paying double the amount of money for a water block worth it, to avoid having to, you know, spend 5 minutes with a grinder? Is it worth it to come with with an instruction manual? Should I have not been in this situation at all and just bought like a more prominent brand of graphics card? I don't know. You tell me. You tell me. In the meantime, I'm going to put this in the PC, make sure everything boots up, make sure we can post and I can get some display from the outputs, and then if we're all good, I'm going to put it back into my loop and get on with my life and hopefully not do this again for quite some time. Yeah, if you're a Galax 4080 owner or a potential Galax 4080 owner and you want a water cool, this is what you're in for, guys. Hope this helps. See ya.